Okay, so welcome everyone to today's event. Um, it's organized jointly by Center for Intelligent Systems, Tel University of Technology, and also IEEE Estonia Section Young Professionals Affinity Group. And the topic of today's discussion is FOMCON Toolbox and some recent advances in robust fractional order control. And I'm your host for this session. My name is Alexei. And I'm also the first speaker in the session. And my co-speaker uh, is Dr. Student Majid Garbani. He will speak about the actual advances in robust fractional order control after a kind of general introduction to the topic and also the FOMCON Toolbox. So one disclaimer is that I'm still recovering a little bit from a cold, so my voice isn't as strong. Hopefully it's not a big issue for you guys. So hopefully everything will go smoothly even so. So then let's proceed. A few words about myself, and a lot of you already know me to this extent, so I will not focus on this too much. However, since I do represent Center for Intelligent Systems, a few words about our competences, core competences, and skills and knowledge in research. So main idea is intelligent control. This is something that we focus on here in Center for Intelligent Systems and a whole other things that are related to it. One of which is, of course, fractional calculus, which is, after all, the topic of today's discussion as well. So the idea of today's discussion, based on the pre-survey as well, is going to be a really short introduction to fractional calculus, a reminder to those who may not be completely familiar with some of the core concepts that we're going to be using. And then we switch to robust fractional control. And this reminds me that I think it was 2 years ago that we had the previous workshop on FOMCON, which was dedicated to programmatic features of the toolbox. So basically, during the Q&A session, one of the questions was, okay, so you want to implement those interval arithmetic with uncertainty intervals into FOMCON, when this will happen. So basically, today is the answer. We provide the answer to that. So it has happened, and we're going to be presenting it. Right. So. Origin of fractional calculus. A lot of you already know this, that the topic of fractional calculus is more than 300 years old. So in a modern setting, it might have gone something like this. So basically, a couple of mathematicians are discussing this topic, in this case, Leibniz and L'Hopital, and eventually they conclude that, okay, the idea of fractional calculus, the main idea of fractional calculus is interesting, and someday some useful consequences may be drawn from it. And this is where we are now in modeling and control, basically. So after that, the topic has been developed for many, many years, and we eventually arrived at the core idea that what we want is a generalization of conventional calculus to include real orders, potentially also complex orders, and so on. So we're not limited only to, conventional calculus. And so that's the main idea. And from this actually stem all other related concepts, such as the fractional differential equation idea, and the related concept of the fractional transfer function. So this is the main object, by the way, in FOMCON Toolbox as well, that we are working with. And so it's a fairly important concept in that sense. But again, it's just a generalization. So we have conventional transfer functions, and then we generalize by introducing this fractional operator into the mix, and then we get to a generalized version that can hopefully help us to model real-life systems better and also design better controllers. We heavily rely in real-time applications on approximation of fractional operators. Sorry. So, okay, seems okay now. So once again, guys, please kindly mute your microphones until the Q&A. Anyway, so we rely on approximations of fractional operators in order to implement them in real scenarios. This is a large topic, so I cannot hope to cover it in a fairly short presentation like today. But again, this is a kind of foundational result. And here on this slide, we see the Ostloop's recursive filter approximation, which is a fantastic result used in many different cases for digital or analog implementation of fractional models and control. So a really important result, foundational for FOMCON Toolbox as well. And again, if you're a beginner in fractional calculus and you're trying to implement something, you should be really careful about choosing the specifications for the approximation as well, because otherwise you may end up with an incorrect result. So in this case, a slow system is studied, so you need to shift the frequencies to the lower end to get a valid approximation. So the defaults will not work. Obviously, not only for modeling, but also from control perspective, we can actually implement or we can generalize the concept of the differential or integral operator to include the so-called PID controller, right? So we call this FOPID controller, fractional-order PID controller. And the only thing that changes is that we allow these operators, the integrator and differentiator, to be non-integer. And this gives us additional flexibility as seen from the following animation, for example. So here we are dealing with a fractional integrator. The input signal is a square-shaped signal. And you can see that by changing the order of the integrator, we're getting kind of results that are in between the classical integrator. So this is what gives us flexibility from the control standpoint, from the perspective of control actions in the time domain. And the same thing for the differentiator, except here we have a trapezoidal input signal end. But the point is the same. Again, we are able to kind of move between these control actions defined by the conventional differentiator and the pure input signal. Now, in terms of industrial applicability of FOPD controllers, one paper that I can recommend you take a look at is this one, which we co-authored with several people. About the industrialization of FOPD controllers. It's from a few years back, but I think the results there are still valid, and definitely check it out if you're interested in this specific topic of whether we are almost there for moving towards actually industrializing fractional order PID controllers. So there's a lot of discussion there. So, for today's discussion, there are some additional theoretical settings that are required. So let's have a quick look at those. So first of all, interval arithmetic and interval uncertainty. This is what Majid will be speaking about shortly. But just as a kind of example, here's a paper about interval arithmetic. Right, so that's the basic setting. You don't need the full extent to read the full extent of the paper to understand the basic operations that we are performing, but the core ideas lie therein. So definitely, if you're interested in this topic, I invite you to check it out as well. And some simple examples to get us started with interval arithmetic. And again, Majid will tell you more about the specific applications to robust control. But basically, so if we have two intervals, real intervals like this, and then the sum can be defined as follows. Again, not defined, but rather this is just an example. Definitions, for definitions, look into the paper. And multiplication is something like that. So basically, those are some examples of interval arithmetic that can be useful to understand further discussion. Obviously, from here we move on to generalizing these ideas, and obviously we can use these intervals as coefficients in polynomials, and so we arrive at the idea of interval uncertainties in polynomials because we can think about these coefficients as uncertainty intervals, right? And obviously, from here, we directly go into the idea that we can do the same for the transfer function for the numerator and denominator. And so we finally arrive at the main idea that we're going to be discussing today. Right. Okay, but now a few words about FOMCON Toolbox. I still have about 5 minutes remaining in my part. So I wanted to give you some live demonstrations here, very simple ones, albeit. So when you install the toolbox and you browse to the folder which contains the necessary files, you should see something like this. Now, these two classes are the new classes in FOMCON, which we're going to be discussing today. Again, Majid will pick up from my discussion and continue telling you how to use them. In fact, some of the codes are already in the repository. I will show you how to get to them in a few moments, but some not. So after today's presentation, we will discuss this with Majid, and I will upload them here as well. So the basic idea of FOMCON Toolbox is that we have this concept of model-based control design. And in FOMCON, the main idea was starting from FOTF Toolbox to move on to this model-based control design paradigm through addition of graphical user interfaces. This is why this was one of the questions in the survey as well. This is how the toolbox actually got started. Eventually, I started introducing additional functionality into the toolbox so that it became more feature-rich and allowed many different workflows. But the core idea still remains the same. So if you're just exploring FOMCON, one thing you can start by doing is by typing FOMCON, just like that. And you should see a graphical user interface pop up. Now, in this case, its scaling is wrong, unfortunately, but I can attach it to the IDE or the MATLAB interface so that I can see it properly. This is one of the things that in the future will have to be updated significantly. I cannot give you a timeline of this, but the graphical user interfaces are based on an aging system, which is called Guide, and this is something that definitely has to be upgraded to the new user interface system. But if you type in FOMCON, you get something like that. Again, if you have scaling issues like I did just now, you can just expand it to fill the user interface here. And then you can just get started with this interface by playing around, creating some systems. Now, in this specific instance, we're creating some fractional transfer function. So you have to name it somehow, like G1, for example. Then maybe you type in something like S plus 1. And this is one feature in FOMCON that maybe stands out quite a bit, is that we allow usage of strings which contain symbolic expressions. So for the pole polynomial, let me type in something like s to the 1.5 plus 5s to the 0.5 plus 1, something like that. So when I click OK, now I have this system, and I can perform some operations on it using this interface. Now, this interface borrows heavily from the LTI viewer from Control System Toolbox, basically, so it allows you to do these basic operations on systems. So let's try to simulate the step, for example, for this specific system, and it might look something like this. Right. So, and from here, also from this representation, what you can do is you can go into other tools. Now, in this case, unfortunately, I don't have this ability because I don't see the menu even. Let's see if I can take this back. Yeah, okay. So scaling is still wrong, but I can see menu here. By the way, the scaling is you can set up in your operating system. So you just change the scaling there, and it should improve things. But from here, you can go to different tools that the FOMCON Toolbox offers, like identification, fractional PID design, and also options, which are global options for the entire toolbox. Again, scaling is a bit off, so I have to zoom in quite a bit, but they're here. And once you change them here, they will be saved, and they will be recalled the next time you will be using the toolbox as well. So just a very brief introduction into this. Now, of course, every feature in FOMCON is also supported programmatically, and I know many of you are using FOMCON in this way, not necessarily using graphical facilities, but rather opting to use these programmatic features, which is completely fine as well. So let's go back to the presentation. So basically, in terms of what features are currently supported in the toolbox, obviously, this main idea of fractional order systems analysis, which is the backbone or the foundation of the entire thing. But then there's also identification, control design, implementation, and recently robust control. Now, the reason why robust control is an independent module here like this is because it provides more feature than just control design. And again, this is something that Majid will focus on in a few moments. So large part of today's discussion is based on the paper published in proceedings of ICFD conference of 2023. So feel free to check that out as well. And basically here is how you can get to the latest features, including uncertainty interval models. So you have to go to GitHub, and from here go to branches and choose devel UFOTF. And from here you can just download the toolbox. Now, if you do have it installed already through MATLAB, which is the conventional way of doing it, so you install it from MATLAB's add-on manager, you have to either uninstall it from there or use a separate MATLAB configuration file, so you don't get mixed up in these two versions. My suggestion maybe is just to use a separate MATLAB version altogether in order to play with these features, and then whenever you need a stable version, you just use that, which is installed from the add-on manager in MATLAB. But essentially, yeah, you have to go to GitHub to download this version. It's not yet officially released. Okay, I'm almost done. So just, again, a few words about these classes that now appear in that branch in FOMCON. So you have poly is underlying class, which allows to create these polynomials with uncertainty intervals. And then UFOTF is already transfer function representation. Now, bear in mind, because these features are still in work in progress, all of these things can actually change at any moment. So don't rely on them too heavily. You can play with them. You can use them for some testing purposes, but remember that still they can at some point change. So just a word of warning about that. And with that, I think I will hand over to Majid. No, you have to start sharing.
Okay. Hello to everyone. My name is Majid, PhD student at Tallinn University of Technology, and thank you all for taking the time to join this event today. The agenda for today's presentation includes four main sections: background, interval fractional order polynomials, interval fractional order systems, and future works. In the first section, I will introduce the concept of interval uncertainty and explain its significance in the field of control system. And in the second section on interval fractional order polynomials, I will demonstrate how to analyze their robust stability using FOMCON Toolbox. Moving on, the third section, interval fractional order systems, I will guide you through checking the robust stability of such system with or without interval time delays using the same toolbox, and you will see how straightforward it is to perform these checks with the FOMCON toolbox. And finally, I will conclude with a discussion on potential future directions. Background, interval uncertainty. Interval uncertainty refers to a range of possible values that system parameters or variables can take rather than precise or fixed values. And why it's important for control systems, modeling real-world systems often suffer from uncertainties. One of the most popular ways among engineers to involve this uncertainty in the model of the system is to use the interval uncertainty structure. And it allows the design of controllers that can handle variations in system parameters, ensuring stability and performance under a wide range of conditions. Figure 1 illustrates a real-world example of a level control process modeled as a first-order system with time delay. And as detailed in table 1, the identified parameters of the model, gain k, time constant q1, and the time delay tau vary across different trials. As seen in this table, these parameters fluctuate in each trial. This variability highlights the need to account for all possible values of these parameters in the model. Hence, it's more appropriate to consider the system as an interval flat. Interval fractional order polynomials. Consider an interval fractional order polynomial as delta s and q, q0 times s to the power of alpha 0 plus q1 times s to the power of alpha 1, and so on. And the coefficients qi lie in specified intervals, and the highest order coefficient qn also must be non-zero, and fractional orders follow the inequalities presented here. So now the question is that how to define an interval fractional order polynomial in MATLAB using FOMCON toolbox. It's very straightforward. You just need to use UF-poly function, and thanks to Dr. Alexi for providing this function in FOMCON Toolbox. So let me give you an example to demonstrate how simple this process is. For example, we want to, let's define an interval fractional order polynomial in MATLAB using UF-poly. For instance, define delta S. So we have the following syntax.
So you're not sharing your screen, you're sharing the presentation still.
Okay.
You should maybe stop share.
So I think Okay. So it has a straightforward syntax. You have poly, and then you will import the specific intervals for the coefficients and the corresponding fractional orders. Let me show you a practical example to clarify how this works. For example, range from 1 to 2 s to the power of 1.9 plus, for example, 0.1 to 0.3 s to the power of 1.1 plus 2 range from 2 to 3 s to the power of s to the power of 0.6 plus 1 to 2. Okay, so the result is fractional polynomial with uncertainty intervals. Let's back to this slide. Know how to check the robust stability of an interval fractional order polynomial in MATLAB using the FOMCON Toolbox. It's also a straightforward process involving just two steps. First, check the stability of one chosen member within the uncertainty space of delta S and Q. And for this, you can use Mikhailov FO tool provided in the FOMCON Toolbox. And second, use the row stab FO1 tool to verify the robust stability of the system that there was a step of interval fractional order polynomials. Now let's proceed to check the robust stability of interval fractional order polynomials using these two steps and FOMCON Toolbox. So but for the first step, as mentioned earlier, we need to check the stability of one chosen member from the uncertainty space. So let's select the chosen member as the lower bound. So I name it P1. P1. So P1 is, again, I use UF poly. With the lower bound, so it's 1 for the first interval, and second one is 0.1 and 2, and the last one is 1. So the result is fractional polynomial, and as mentioned earlier, we can use Mikhailov FO to check the robust stability of the chosen member. The syntax is also too straightforward, something like Mikhailov FO. And once we input the polynomial here, the tool generates the fractional order Mikhailov plot, which helps us assess its stability. Okay, so as seen from this figure, the origin is not encircled by the path. So
again, the figure is not showing up.
Really? So again, I have to share it.
I think it's easier to share the screen if you prefer.
Yes.
Otherwise, window by window basis, it's always a bit limited.
So this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
In that case, you don't have to switch between,
Yeah,
share
it's
MATLAB
okay.
and this one.
So the origin, the total encirclement of the origin is 0. Therefore, the system is stable. So as you know, for Nyquist plot, we need to check the relationship between -1 and the past. But in Mikhailov's plot, we need to check the relationship between the origin and the past. So the total encirclement of the origin is 0, and therefore it's the chosen member is stable. Now, for so we can use step FO1 to check the robust stability of the system. So it's also to a straightforward rope step FO1 delta. So the system is robustly stable. This means that any system with this characteristic function would be robustly stable, and any chosen member in the uncertainty space is also stable. Okay. Figure 1 illustrates a unity feedback control system that incorporates a fractional order controller denoted as CS and fractional order plant denoted as PS. And as shown in this slide, CS represents the transfer function of fractional order controller, and its general form is also provided here. And PS also represents the plant's interval transfer function, which includes interval uncertainties in both its numerator and denominator coefficients. And additionally, the plant incorporates an interval time delay, meaning that the time delay is not fixed, at least, but lies within a specified range here. Now, again, maybe this question arises: how to define an interval fractional order transfer function in MATLAB using FOMCON Toolbox. It's also to straightforward, so we can use UFOTF, for example. For plant, UFOTF, and we have 3 inputs, and the interval fractional order of a numerator in, for example, 0.12 or maybe 1.2, range from 0.1 to 0.2 s to the power of 0.3 plus 0.4 or maybe 1 to 2. And for interval fractional order of the denominator, so again, we can range from 0.1, 0.5 to 0.6 s to the power of 0.6 plus 1, 2 s to the power of, for example, 0.3 plus 0.4 to 0.5. And for the interval time delay, for example, 0.01 to 0.1. So the result is fractional order transfer function with uncertainty intervals. So to check the robust stability of the closed loop control system, we have the same steps as mentioned earlier, and just we use different tools, Mikhailov FOCLCS for closed loop control system to check the stability of the chosen member, and we can use also RoboStab FOCLCS to check the robust stability of closed loop control system. So, for example, I name the chosen member of P1, and again I use UFOTF, and I usually select this member with the lower bound of interval transfer function. So just I select the lower one. And the result is fractional order transfer function. Okay, so for example, I want to check this, for example, for PI and the fractional order PI controller, like, for example, controller, something like, for example, for PI controller, for example, 0.1 plus s to the power of 0.3 and s to the power of 0.3 can robustly establish the closed loop system or not. So based on the first step, I use Mikhailov FOCLCS to check the stability of the chosen member. So the origin is not encircled, so therefore the chosen member is stable. And now we can use RoboStab FOCLCS to check the robust stability of system. Controller plant. So as you can see, the system is robustly stable. Okay, now we want to check the robust stability of servo system using the FOMCON Toolbox. Indeed, figure 2 illustrates servo system of our lab, and the angles transfer function has been identified like as a PS in the slide, and we would like to know that therefore PID controller in the slide can robustly establish the closed loop system or not. So I already prepared the codes. So for the transfer function, and there is a key point here. As you can see, there is no interval time delay in the plant of the system. However, these two steps and these two tools, RoboStab FOCLCS and Mikhailov FOCLCS, can work well for even systems with or without any interval time delay. So in this case, so for the chosen member P, I use UFOTF, and that the transfer function with the lower bound has been selected, and it's easy to also define it by using a UFOTF, and the controller also has been defined using UFOTF, which is a fractional order PD control, and then I use Mikhailov FOCLCS controller and P to check the stability, and then define the plant using UFOTF, and then finally I use robust FOCLCS to check the robust stability of the closed loop control system. So by running this code, we can see the result. Okay, the system is robustly stable, provided that this path and the origin is not encircled by the path. So as seen here, the total encirclement of the origin is also 0. Therefore, the system is robustly stable. And for as a second example of real-world system, figure 3 shows a twin rotor aerodynamic system in our laboratory, and its open loop plant has been identified as appears in the slide, and we would like to know that the FOPID controller CS presented here can robustly stabilize the system or not. And so again, first I use UFOT to define the controller, the fractional order PID controller, and then the plant, the interval plant also has been defined using UFOTF, and the time delay also range from 0.1 to 0.15, and for the chosen member also name here P, and I use UFOTF to define it. Then I use Mikhail FOCLCS and Robustab FOCLCS to check stability of the chosen member and robust stability of the system. So the system is robustly stable because the origin is not encircled by the path. So both tools can be used for both system with or without any interval time. Future works in the robust stability analysis of fractional order systems with general interval uncertainties should be one of our potential future direction. And general interval uncertainty means that indeed in any interval fractional order polynomials, both coefficients and order lie in specified intervals, and definitely it will be too difficult to check the robust stability of such system. The reason is that their value sets would be non-convex shape in the complex way. And our second future direction will be tuning robust fractional order stabilization for interval fractional order system. This means that so later we provide you with some tools to tune robust fractional order controllers for interval fractional order systems. And thank you for your attention. And if you would like to know to see the proofs of our findings or details, you can check these 3 papers.
Okay, so thank you, Majid, for this nice presentation.